This is The Meaningful Way. I'm your host, Luke Iorio. The Meaningful Way isn't simply about thinking positive or envisioning your dreams and poof, oh, here it is. The Meaningful Way is a journey with peaks and valleys. It's hard work and choices, and we recognize that we learn as much from the tougher times that test us and our character than we do at any other time in our lives. Well, today we're going to explore some of the challenges of positive thinking. We're going to hear a bit about that journey, and we're going to talk about where can we really focus for powerful results in our life to live more intentionally. We're going to do that with our guest today, David Essel. David is a master teacher, author, storyteller, radio and TV host, little kid in a man's body. I love that. Adjunct professor, seeker, finder, addiction recovery coach, inspirational speaker, and an all faiths minister who marvels at the beauty of life, the life that God has blessed him with. That in and of itself is an intro, but let me tell you a little more, because David, from his own personal recovery from drug and alcohol addiction, has helped him to create one of the most successful holistic addiction recovery programs in the United States. For 25 years, David has used a variety of healing methods to help people release limiting beliefs regarding money and their bodies, love, addictions, lack of self-identity and worth, and even more, including emotional desensitization, amino acid therapy, emotional freedom technique and tapping, as well as so many other practices of journaling and nutritional therapy, meditation, financial freedom, and so much more. As you can tell, David has a wealth of experience over his past 30 years within this field. And we're going to talk a bit today about his newest #1 best-selling book, Positive Thinking Will Never Change Your Life. That's right. Positive thinking will never change your life, but this book will, which combines so much of the learning and all of the background that I just shared with you a moment ago. He's been verified by the Psychology Today magazine as one of the top counselors and master coaches in the USA, a Business Person of the Year award by the Idea Association, Master of Motivation, Mr. Motivation, the highest rated speaker in the history of our convention at one of the International Exhibitors Association, and the list goes on. I'd keep going, but we'd run out of show. So with that, David, thank you for joining us today.
Oh my goodness, Luke. Well, that was pretty powerful. Thank you so much, my brother. And you know what's cool about this interview is that I already know that you and I are on the same wavelength. Yeah. You know, there's already a congealing of energy here. And I appreciate what you're doing, and also the fact that we get a chance to talk about real stuff versus the word you used in the beginning of the introduction, poof, the goal is achieved. You know, we're going to talk about real stuff today and what do real people do to achieve massive success, which I love.
You know, and David, just before we went on air, one of the things we were talking about is that, you know, many of the people that find this show, it's that they're seeking to find that more meaningful way of life, and how do they begin to create it and grab hold of it and step into it intentionally, consciously, as opposed to running on default mode, you know, letting the priorities and the obligations, the responsibilities just pile up and put us into the status quo. And I guess where I wanted to start today was a bit about when you were in the status quo, meaning what was life before everything that you're doing now? Because I mean, 30 plus years, you've got extraordinary results coaching athletes and celebrities and just some amazing, amazing people and businesses out there, but it didn't start there. So I was wondering if you could take us back before you really created and found who you are today.
Well, yeah, and if you can just envision me standing in front of you, Luke, in full tights and leotards, dude, that's where I started. You know, there's, it's funny, on my About David page at the very bottom, we have several covers of several magazines that I was on over the years. I started in 1980, 37 years ago, in the world of fitness, and was one of the first male fitness aerobic gurus back then with exercise videos. I traveled the world, Luke. Actually, you know, I laugh about it now, that part of my life with tights, but my God, you know, I traveled the world in tights. I would go through airports because I would arrive somewhere in Germany or in Mexico or Canada or anywhere in Europe, and I had to be on stage speaking that night. So that was my humble beginnings. I look at it now and I laugh at myself in tights, but that's really where it began. And then over the years, what I found is that when we are the parrot, which most of us are, Luke, and we don't even realize it, When we are the parrot, when we're parroting really good sounding advice from people that walk before us, but we haven't lived it, there's an air of inauthenticity there. And it took me a number of years to break out of following the crowd and doing what I thought was great for my career because other people were doing it, to finding my own voice. And then, of course, the last thing that you talked about, our number one best-selling book, the most recent number one bestseller, is really a compilation of me breaking away from the crowd, doing what David Essel does best. And so I think in 37 years, to answer your question, I went from the follower and the parrot and the duck behind the leading geese to become the goose, to become the leader. And with that, though, I want to say this because you know this, Luke, and probably a lot of your listeners do. When you break out of the parroting mold and the following mold, which is very hard to do, because the ego wants us to stay in that box, the small ego does, you will find that you have adversaries. You will find that you don't have a full support staff all the time. You will find people questioning who you are and why you think you're speaking the language you're speaking. But one of the greatest messages we can give you is that everyone that has made a massive difference in this world has done it with their own twist.
That's interesting because there's a lot there that I want to go a little further into, but let's just jump in off that last point around what I would kind of describe as these forces of resistance, right? When we step out of the mold and we no longer are parroting what's out there, but we're forging a new trail, we're going in a new direction, we're pointing out the things that most people find too uncomfortable to talk about, let's say. When we go in that direction, we get met with a lot of resistance. And I guess I'm curious, what is it for you that you believe people can really begin to lean into that helps them stay that course? And where I get to that from, or one of the things I'd love for you to also chat about, is I think it's when we find that resistance, that's when we tend to fall back on not just old behavior, but crutches and things that distract us. And I'll even go to the point of the things that we get addicted to. And whether that be substances or social media or any number of things that we allow to occupy our time that keep us from leaning into the resistance that's coming our way. And I'm curious on your perspective about all that.
Yeah, well, it's really easy to go with the flow, isn't it? It's really easy. You've got all your friends around you and they're all championing the same lines, the same cute comments, the same quote and, motivational quotes. But what we have to do is this, I think, is that we've got to really sit back, Luke, and say, is this working for my life? Is this philosophy that I'm teaching, is this way that I'm practicing as a coach, as an entrepreneur, as a network marketer, as a massage therapist, as an employee, is it working? Is it really bringing me joy? Is it bringing me fulfillment? Are the people I'm working with shattering goals that they never could have achieved before? If the answer to that is yes, I'm filled with passion, I'm free of all addiction. I think you brought something up, man. You know what? If anyone listening, and you can justify, rationalize, defend, deny, you can do whatever you want, but if you are leaning on anything, if you're leaning on social media and you can't be away from it from 24 hours, there's an addiction. If you're leaning on a person that you have to run all of your thoughts by before you feel secure enough to make that decision, that's an addiction. If you have to have a glass of wine at night to chill out or to celebrate or to break boredom or whatever it might be, you're not living at your highest level. Now, I will tell you, for the 25 plus years that I was an alcoholic and an addict, doing this work, Luke, I wasn't on the street sleeping underneath bridges, man. I was successful as hell on the materialistic level. I was extremely successful, beach homes, cars, blah, 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 the whole 9 yards. But I was not living at my highest level of authenticity or realness. And one of the reasons I wasn't is that I was getting swept up in repeating what the other all-stars in my industry, people who were ahead of me, Luke, were saying. And even if it didn't resonate with me, or even if it didn't work, and let's go to this world of positive thinking. From 1980, when I walked away from school and into this real world until 1996, I was one of those people traveling the world, standing on stage in front of 5,000 people saying, if you believe it, you can achieve it.
Yeah.
And it's nonsense, Luke.
Yeah.
You can believe whatever the hell you want to believe. It has nothing to do with achievement. Our thoughts becomes things. Unless you're talking about the negative, if you're talking about our thoughts becoming millions of dollars, the perfect body, that's a bunch of crap. It is. It's a bunch of crap. Unless it's a miracle. Now, if you wake up in the morning and you say, I am a millionaire, and you win the lottery that night and you're a millionaire, God bless you, but that's called a miracle. That is not the power of your thought. And so, for me, and it happened in 1996, and with an interview, if we have a chance, I'll explain to you, but my whole world was shattered when someone called me out. Yeah. And in being called out, I had to face the music, look in the mirror and go, oh, my Lord, I have been a parrot. I have been an alcoholic. I have been an addict. That's not authenticity.
Actually, I would love for you to go into that, because that's part of what I think so many of us out there are looking at, is that we know that there are parts of, and whether it be to a small degree or to a large degree, there's part of us that we know is wearing a facade. It's an image that we're putting out there. It's something that we're parroting. And we're doing that for a reason. It could be because we're trying to meet certain roles or responsibilities, or we believe maybe it's just safer to wear that face out there, or it's because we're too afraid of people finding out some of the things that we doubt about ourselves, or maybe guilt or shame that we may feel. We wear these masks in any number of ways, but it's only when we really get taken to task, and hopefully it's ourselves that are taking us to task, which sounds like you got taken to task by somebody else. Mm-hmm. But it's only when we face those things, do the things that should fall away finally fall away. So I'd love for you to go into that experience further.
Yeah, well, it's really hard for us to call ourselves out.
Yeah.
It really is, man. I mean, you have to be a brutally, honest, self-engaged individual to look in the mirror without someone else pushing you and say, I radically need to change this. And then you have to be even a more powerful person to do what needs to be done. Most of us, what I've seen in our existence, and I'm going to say something before I get into the story, I'm going to make this very powerful comment. If you want great success and you don't have a coach, you don't have a counselor, you don't have a financial advisor, you're pretty screwed. Yeah. That's just the bottom line. You know what? If let's say that on average, people listening to this are 30, 40, 50 years of age?
Yep, typically.
Okay. All right. So let's say that you're 30, 40, or 50, and you've been thinking about for the last 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 20 years that you want to be in great shape, but you don't got it. Or you want to make a certain amount of money, 100, 200, 500, $1 million a year, but you don't have it. Or you want to have this certain kind of dynamic love relationship, you don't have it. Then guess what? You'll probably never get it on your own. If you had a goal for more than a couple years and you don't have it yet, or you're not seeing like huge insight in that you're making great progress, you'll probably never do it on your own. It takes a very humble, vulnerable person to listen to what I just said, to say David's right. David's only right because he's went through crap in his life. That's the only reason I'm right. But it takes a very big person to say, you know what? Well, he's talking about other people. He doesn't know me. I'm this disciplined, blah, blah, blah. It's pretty much a bunch of illusion. It's self-illusion. So let's go into the story of how I was called out. You know, for 27 years, I've hosted a radio show. And in 1996, we were selected as the only media outlet for this incredible teacher's 40th anniversary of the work that he did. He was in this field for 40 years. He wanted to do a celebratory interview with one major media outlet in the United States, and he chose us, which was mind-blowing. He's no longer with us on this plane, but he was the founder of Transcendental Meditation. His name is Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He located the show. He found out that I had been practicing Transcendental Meditation since 1988. Here it is, 1996. He said, this is the guy. The guy's doing positive radio. Who the hell ever heard of positive radio back in 1996? And he goes, let's celebrate 40 years of Transcendental Meditation, which, by the way, is the only form of meditation that has been scrutinized so deeply by our own U.S. government. Our government has put millions of dollars into studying the positive effect of Transcendental Meditation on things like high blood pressure, osteoporosis, believe it or not, and more. So it's a highly studied, extremely powerful form of meditation. So we do this interview, and I'm off the charts, Luke. I am so excited. Maharishi, half of the interview, he's talking, he's using words I've never even heard of. He's so freaking smart. And I'm laughing. And then he found out that I'm laughing because I don't know what the hell he's talking about. So then he thinks it's funny, right? And so we're having this great time. And I keep going, Maharishi, can you give me another example? I can't follow this existential information you're sharing. And he was such a great guest and so fun and wonderful. And one of the things at the end of the show, when we were done, I said to my producer, oh my God, that was hilarious. What do you remember? And my producer said, I don't remember anything. And I said, this is so weird. I don't either, other than his laughter. And Luke, a couple weeks before we had Deepak Chopra on, and weeks before that we had Susie Orman. And so if someone said, what did Susie talk about? I'd say, here's the 4 financial freedom keys that you know. With Maharishi, I couldn't remember a thing. So we kind of blew it off. 3 weeks later, I'm speaking in Orlando, Florida. I get off the stage. There's a group of people asking questions. And at the very end, there's this tiny little lady standing there. And I get to her and I said, do you have a question? And she said, well, actually, I'm here to interview. And I said, really? And she said, yeah, I just flew in from Iowa. I have 20 minutes and then I've got to get back. I've got a flight. We're leaving. We've only got 20 minutes. I said, okay, let's go grab coffee. So we sat down and I said, how the heck did you know I was speaking and who sent you? And she said, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi sent me. And I said, are you serious? And she said, yeah. And I said, oh my God, I love that guy. And she said, well, he obviously must love you too, because he sent me here to ask you one question. I said, okay, what is it? And she said, what do you remember from the interview? Luke, I looked at her and I said, this is a prank. And she said, no, I'm serious. What do you remember from the interview? And I said, I don't remember anything. And she said, David, you must remember something. I said, I really don't. I said, she goes, oh, come on, just try hard. And I said, okay. He was filled with joy. He was filled with more joy. And she said, I'm going to share something with you that you may not like, you may not understand, but sometime down the road, you're going to get it. I said, okay. She said, David, the reason you remember that is that you have no joy. And I said, could you repeat that? And she said, sure. She said, the reason that you remember his joy is because you don't have any. And, I went completely bonzo defensive, Luke.
Sure.
I go, what do you mean? I'm a top-selling author. I've written national. I just had this huge show and he selected me. Blah, 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 blah. I'm doing my life's work. And she said, I know. But you'll figure out what this means for you down the road. She goes, David, I've been with him 36 of his 40 years. And in that period of time, I will sit with the other group of people that are with him full time at his feet as he lectures for 7 hours in a row. We'll get up and we'll go outside and we'll talk about what he brought up during that 7-hour presentation. And all of us have heard something different. And usually what we hear is what we're lacking.
Yeah.
He's magical, David. Take this as truth. And I said, okay, well, I love Maharishi. I don't know if I love you. I said, but I think he's great. I'm not sure I'm digging you. And so with that, the interview was over. I just was honest with her, right? And so hey, he's great, but you're not so great. Yeah. So here's the cool thing. Several more weeks go by. It's a Tuesday afternoon, 1996, 2:30 in the afternoon, and I come out of a 3-day binge. And I looked in the mirror and I said, David Essel, an addict, an alcoholic, cannot have joy. And Luke, that set me on this huge new path, which made me question everything I believed in, everything I did, everything I taught, and I found out I was wrong in so many areas of life. And here's a big one that happened 3 days later. For 25 years before that interview in 1996, I woke up every day as a proponent of positive thinking, as a lover of visualization, as a lover of vision boards before. We used to call them dream boards and reality boards. Like I loved all this stuff. And I had an affirmation I said every morning for 25 years, I am a child of God, happy, healthy, and sober today. And for 25 freaking years in a row, I drank every night. I woke up to the reality that the emphasis we put on affirmations and positive thinking is a bunch of nonsense. And that if we want to look at the reality of life, 80% will come from what we do, 20% will come from how we think, Luke.
Yeah.
And unless it's a miracle. Now, I hold miracles, and I also want to say this. Every morning, for the first hour of every morning, for the last, well, I'm 60 now, so for the last 54 years, since I was 6 years of age, I would wake up with positive thoughts. I would wake up knowing I'm going to make a difference in this world. But I also knew that none of that ever created my success on playing basketball, my success as a speaker, my success as a counselor, my success as a coach, as an author. All those positive thinking thoughts, which people claim can radically change your life, cannot and will not. And as a matter of fact, as I said a minute ago, that saying that I'm sober every day was an illusion that kept me actually trapped in my addiction, Luke.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. It gave you the benefit of assuming that that was now your identity when it never, in fact, was.
And so if people want to know if your positive thinking is working, look at your bank account. Look at strip to the freaking nakedness and look in the mirror and see if your affirmations have helped you lose weight. Look at your relationship and see if your affirmations have healed and forgiven your partner when they had an affair on you. And if any of that is true, that you became a millionaire through your thoughts, you forgave your partner effortlessly, who you caught in bed with your next door neighbor, who you lost 150 pounds, and it all came because of your vision board, that's miracle work. Yeah. Most of us, Luke, are suffering today. And our book is about hope. And this interview that you and I are doing, my whole message is not about saying don't think positively. Gosh, I commit the first hour every day to my thought process. But it's if you're not getting what you want, you've got to do something different.
So I want to dive into that just a little bit further in just a second, because I agree. I mean, the number of individuals that I have the pleasure of talking to, whether I'm coaching or researching or writing or whatever it happens to be, and to hear this story that they get stuck in, and then the next time you see them, they're still in that same story, and the next time that you see them, they're still doing that thinking, and the next time after that, they're still doing that thinking, because it never translates into that conscious positive action that you're talking about right now. Before we dive into that, though, there's one follow-up question to your story that I've got to ask you. Today, what is joy to you?
Oh my God, I'm getting chills right now. And I'm getting very emotional. It's a very powerful question. When you reach freedom from anything that you depend on, there is more joy. If you reach freedom and you're single, and for years you thought that you needed a better half, and all of a sudden you realize that without that better half coming into your life, you are enough. When you don't have to look for something to celebrate higher with. You don't have to use chemicals to bring up something that's really good and make it better. You don't have to use chemicals because you're bored. You don't. And when I say chemicals, I'm talking sugar, salt, white flour. Those are drugs, man. Yeah. Boy, they hit the brain. Joy to me is being that free, Luke. It's being so free. It's like, celebrating your 30-year relationship, if it's a healthy one, and most of them at 30 years are not. That's just reality. But let's say that you're in a 30-year relationship and you're really blessed and you've worked your butt off, and that's joy. It's not that your partner does anything for you. It's the fact that you have something healthy. To me, that's joy. I work a lot, but I take every Sunday and I'm on the beach for the entire day. To me, that's joy, Luke. Yeah. You and I are very blessed, and I hope that so many of our listeners will understand what I'm going to say next. And if they're not there to get there, is that, man, if you're taking your life and you're putting it in someone else's hand, doing things for money versus things to be joyful, you've missed the reason of being alive.
So true.
If you're doing work that isn't thrilling you, you've got to get an exit plan starting right now. I'm not saying put your family at risk of living on the streets, but I'm saying, man, get some advice, get an exit plan, create part-time the work you want to do full-time. I don't care if you have to work 12 hours a day, 8 at the job you don't like, 4 and creating what you will. That's joy.
Yeah. And David, the way that you approach that, number one, thank you for answering that. And the subtle message that is underneath there that I just don't want people to miss, that I heard so clearly, especially as you began speaking, was that joy emerges from that recognition that you're already whole. You're not lacking anything. You're not looking for something else to complete you. It is that it's something that already exists within you, and it's putting that front and center again in your life, and not only thinking on it and believing it, but acting on it and integrating it into the way that you live. And that's what I get from the way in which you're describing both the essence as well as the things that you touch today that bring you that joy.
Yeah, and and it's quite powerful that when you can be where you are, and whatever that is, and you can be
right.
at peace with it. I mean, and here's the thing too, even though, we talk about success, and a lot of times when people hear success, they hear money, and money is important and it's awesome and it's all these other kind of things. But, right now I have a client that makes $10 million a year, and he's really joyful. Right? He's like off the charts joyful. And then I have someone that works in the same field as him that makes very close to the same, and he's outrageously struggling. Yeah. And so I would say, and people have asked me this, I said, hey, listen, I've been broke, and I've been wealthy, and I've been sad in both places and happy in both places. It's like I was a raging alcoholic making a ton of money, and then I lost almost everything, and I let go of alcohol, and it was like, oh my God, I thought that when I let go of alcohol, I was letting go of my best friend, I was letting go of success, I was letting go of all this stuff. But what happens is when you are able to live on your own without something else, really beautiful words, the way that you wrapped it up, when you're able to be at peace right now, Eckhart Tolle, beautiful book, The Power of Now, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, what's he say throughout the whole book? He says one thing throughout the whole book. He says one thing, is that all the power is in this moment. If you can be happy now, you can be happy anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. So, David, I do want to come back because I did want to talk a little bit more about your book, even though we've taken a slight parallel path here. But we've talked about, positive thinking, that it's the belief alone is not going to get you to where it is that you want to be. You talk about positive action. What is it? Just, what are the 2 or 3 things that people would find within this book that helps them recognize this is what's going to begin to make the difference, to make the progress that I'm looking to make to get on the path that I want to be on?
Well, one of the cool things, Luke, is that, for people that never heard my name and don't know who I am and don't know what I do, I always say to people, don't take my word for this. Yeah. When you read the book and you see that we have 6 New York Times bestselling authors that opted to write their own story of how, Luke, they used to believe in the power of thought. Yeah. And then they weren't reaching the levels of success, and then they did X, and then X was working their butt off in order to achieve Y. Like we have got hundreds of stories in the book of people that endorse what I'm saying. So it's not just David Essel out on a limb. I mean, we have an amazing, as a matter of fact, in the book, Dr. Joe Vitale, who's one of the stars of The Secret, if people know that name, in The Secret, Dr. Joe had said, and I interviewed him on my radio show, and this is how the interview went. I said, Joe, in the book, it says you were homeless and you became a millionaire through your thoughts. If that is true, dude, give me the word by word thought, because damn it, I'm going to use it. And he started laughing, and he goes, okay, you said you want the truth. I said, yes, I do. And my massive audience is dying to hear this. And he goes, okay, here's the truth. Before I was asked to be in The Secret, I was already a millionaire. I said, oh, fascinating. Okay. Were you ever homeless? It says you were homeless. Yes, I was. Did you get from homelessness to millionaire via your thoughts? No, I did not. How did it happen, Joe? I worked 7 days a week, 14 hours a day for year after year after year to make my millions of dollars. And he said, David, I did use positive thoughts. But if anyone listening to you right now would work 7 days a week, 14-hour days, you will achieve your goal. And Luke, we don't even have to go to that extent, right, in order to achieve a goal. But his example was well put. Now listen to statistics. Only 4%, we'll just stay on money for the heck of it, since that resonates with everyone. Only 4% of the U.S. population makes $250,000 or more. Mm-hmm. Okay, only 4%. Less than 1% of the U.S. population makes $1 million a year or more. When you look at those statistics and you hear someone saying that you can visualize millions of dollars, you become a million, you have to understand that it's a bunch of smoke, that they're selling something. And we have to be smarter than that. Now, where did this, how does this all resonate? Well, the world of instant gratification is our greatest nemesis. And we talk about how to overcome it in the book. But the bottom line is that if it was so easy to attract millions of dollars or attract all this different kind of stuff, well, we would have had to seen a change in the percentage of people over the last at least 15 years making $250,000 or more. But we've never seen a change. So when we look at what are the keys to shattering the box you're in with your weight, your love life, your money, we can narrow it down to a few things. Number one, it's a commitment of an hour a day or more to the direct conflict that you're facing 5 or 6 days a week for 365 days. So let me repeat that. Yeah. You're struggling with money or your weight or your health or an addiction or your love life or whatever. And we say choose one massive goal. And we give over 100 stories in the book of people that have done this, Luke. We say choose one massive goal, create a plan that you're going to attack it first thing in the morning, 5 to 6 days a week for 1 hour minimum, nonstop. Do that for a year. And at the end of the year, I guarantee you will have lost 100 pounds. You'd be completely sober. You could have increased your income by maybe up to 50% or more. If you're willing on that 1 hour a day, 5 to 6 days a week for 365 days in a row to do what you would rather not do, Luke, that is the secret to massive success.
Yeah. I really appreciate that, because I think it's one of the things that people sort of know in the background, but because of the availability of the other things that promise the instant gratification, we tend to get distracted and move into those different directions. But it's when we bring our thoughts, our feelings, and most importantly, then the actions and the follow through directly, squarely to face off against the area that we want to grow through, the challenge, the conflict that might be there. That to me, I describe that as an inflection point, right? You're bringing all of your energy to very intentionally create a major shift based on focusing it on exactly what it is that you're trying to change at that moment. And when you bring that through, that's when you see these incredible results over time, not tomorrow.
That's it. And the other thing I mentioned at the top of our interview, we've got to do this with an accountability partner.
Love that.
We've got to have a coach, a counselor, a financial planner, a personal trainer, a weight coach, meaning dietary coach. We're not, if we could have accomplished whatever it is, ladies and gentlemen, your greatest goal, if you could have done it by now, you already would have. Yeah. If you don't have it, it's because we've fallen victim to these, oh my God, here's one that drives me nuts. The universe is conspiring to meet your needs. Tell the universe, the universe is the Wizard of Oz, okay? Pull the curtain aside. What the hell is back there? Well, the universe is nothing unless it's a miracle. The universe is this, you want to call it God, you want to call it universal energy, whatever you want. It's not conspiring to meet your needs. It's hanging out waiting for you to do the work. It's like, in the book, we have Ray Higdon, who went from a single dad, lost his home, on the verge of homelessness, to become a multi-millionaire. We tell his story and how he did it. It's my mentor, Joe Cerulli, was homeless, became a multimillionaire. Scarlett Lewis, her son Jesse was massacred at the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. Her story is in my book about how she forgave the killer, Adam Lanza. And I'm going to tell you something, Luke, It wasn't through positive thinking.
Yeah.
We have one of my clients lost 120 pounds for 33 years. She could never lose it. She lost 120 pounds 17 years ago. It's still off. And all these people in the book, and the reason I love the book so much is because it's 100+ stories of people like you and I who sat and looked in the mirror one day and said, this isn't working. I've got to find a new way. They found the new way was effort and accountability, and they mastered their life, Luke.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's one of the things that we'd like to highlight on this specific show. It's one of the things I encourage everybody to do is to look for those everyday stories. Look for the effort that did go in. Look at the follow through that was there, the accountability that was there, because that's what's going to let you know the other 80% of the story that doesn't show up in somebody's bio. It doesn't show up in somebody's, list of accolades or the results that they have today. You've got to look at the journey that they went on to really, truly understand the success that they've created for themselves. And I guess, David, with that, I guess maybe at this point, knowing the name of the show is The Meaningful Way. And one of the things I love to, get the perspective on from my guests is at this point in your life and your career, what is it that you consider to be your meaningful way?
Number one, it's following what I know to be true, whether it's popular or not, Luke. That's like, if I could say it in a nutshell, I'm no longer here as a popularity contest. I'm no longer here to do things that other people are doing. We have this very powerful insight into the world of addiction, and it has nothing to do with our genetics. There is no genetic cause of addiction. You will, if you Google the cause of alcoholism right now, you'll find hundreds of medical stories that will guarantee you it's caused by our genetics. Luke, it's a bunch of crap. And so what we found the meaningful way for me is to look at reality versus studies, to look at reality versus popularity. And when you get your heart and soul aligned with your reality, you will move mountains.
David, I absolutely appreciate you being here on The Meaningful Way, sharing all your experience, your stories, your wisdom with all of our listeners. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, absolutely, Luke. And, I would like to offer all of your listeners chapter 1 of our book for free.
Great.
So that they can get a feel of where we're coming and why I'm so passionate about, exposing the myth that we've been talked about, but also saying don't drop positive thinking because I love it. First thing in the morning, I love it. But let's get real on success. And they can get chapter 1 of our #1 best-selling book on positive thinking at talkdavid.com. The website is talkdavid.com.
Excellent, David. Thank you so much for that. And for everybody, check out that, that book. Certainly you can go on and find Positive Thinking Will Never Change Your Life. You can find it on, any of your online bookstores, wherever you get your books. By all means, please do check that out. And a couple of things that I would just really, really like to remind you of today to leave you with is, number one, I don't want to lose that perspective of find your joy. Find that joy within you. Find the things within your life that bring you joy that you can continue to do more of and bring more of and connect to more often. That I definitely want you to take away. But also then this idea that wherever you're looking to go, whatever that meaningful way path that you are designing and creating and finding for yourself, look at the effort, the follow through, and the accountability systems that you're able to put around you and remind yourself of so that you can turn that positive thinking into positive action, into positive results. And so I strongly encourage you to take a look at those things as well. And of course, until next time, as always, I wish for you to continue to enjoy the journey. Thanks for tuning in to The Meaningful Way. If you enjoyed this episode, do me a favor and please subscribe and follow along with all these great guests, their stories and interviews. Also, it helps us a lot if you not only share some of your favorite episodes online, but also provide us feedback. Go into iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever your favorite podcast app happens to be, and rate the show. Provide us some feedback and let us know how it is that we're doing. If you want to learn more about what we're up to, whether it be with the iPet Coach Training School, the Live, Lead, Play Network, or even just what's evolving with The Meaningful Way, go on and head on over to lukeiorio.com.